taking a bit of a change. We normally are at athletic events, talking to people at the forum. Today we're here, and very lucky to be here, with Lee and Linda Stanley in their home in Costa Mesa, California. Lee and Linda are, you know, you go through life. I'm almost 80, and so I've had the experience of meeting a lot of people. But Lee and Linda are unique. They inspired me many years, not only individually, but their relationship. They are, and I think you'll learn a lot from them, because we've talked about it before, how one spouse encourages the other, or even sometimes partners. Sometimes we've met two women that encourage each other to go do events and things. And so it is true that people can be a massive influence encouraging others in their lifestyle. Well, Lee, of course, is many award-winning writer, director. I don't know how many Emmys you've got to tell us, but he's won numerous awards as a filmmaker.
Tell him 5.
Tell him 5.
Do you want to hold one?
Yeah, and Linda, what a partner Linda is. Not only is she incredibly intelligent, and she's done unbelievable as a real estate, which is tough. That's a tough business.
Yeah,
I mean, real estate is not for the lighthearted, faint-hearted. You've got to work at it, and she's incredibly successful. Lee and Linda have done something that I think so few, I mean, it's in the thousandths of 1 percentile. They spent 9 years on a yacht. It's amazing. We'll ask them about that story. But let's start off with just the premise of redefining aging is that as we age, we don't have to fall in the stereotype, sit on the couch, can't do something.
We're sitting on a couch.
I forgot. We're filming on a couch.
On a stool.
Yeah, we should have adjusted that. But the fact that you all are really an example of how you can really attack life and get the most out of it. I mean, you guys have done that. I've watched you over the years. Not only are you just tremendous as a couple, but your family and the way you've influenced the children is just amazing, and it's lovely to have seen. But tell us, Lee, we'll start with you a little bit on your career as a writer, filmmaker. You were an actor at one time, started off in that way.
And right back at it right now, John.
And then tell us, somewhat about you have been in athletics pretty good.
Excitement about life, the things that I've had the privilege of doing, and I mean that.
You've always been excited about whatever you do. I know that.
Especially with this one.
Passionate, yeah, that's what it's called.
Especially with this one. No, I think I've always been a scuba diver. Enjoyed it immensely, taught it for a while when I was very young before I went to prep school.
Different world, isn't it?
It really is. It's a wonderful world.
Yeah, it's so different.
Yeah, and at prep school where I went, Vermont Academy, it was a ski school. It was very well known for skiing, and I was not good in downhill or slalom because they had junior national guys on the team from our school, and I was slow. But I love ski jumping, and I don't mean the little ones. I mean the big jumps.
Not the moguls.
No, not moguls. Thank you. Yeah, and I loved it, and I loved the first time I went off, a good-sized jump. I remember going down the end run, and I thought, let's hope this all works. Because you jump you spring too soon, you're going to go over back into, all those things. And it worked out just fine, and I loved it. Played baseball.
Motorcycles was a passion.
Well, that was after I got out of prep school. I raced motorcycles.
Yes, I remember that.
I got a ride from Husky. Probably nobody knows what Husky is. Husqvarna.
Oh, I totally.
Okay, and I used to race District 37, which is the high-speed 100-mile races.
Yeah.
Where sometimes there'd be 1,000 guys on the starting line.
Our buddy Skip Van Leeuwen.
Now Skip, I don't think Skip ever raced.
He was a TT racer.
He was an outstanding TT racer.
He was
and I loved scuba diving. I did, as I say, I taught it. That's what really brought me to California, where we are now. And what else have I done that I can brag about here?
Baseball.
Well, your acting
Well,
career,
baseball. Yeah, I started, interestingly enough, I find it interesting, is that I came out, not so loud. I came out to
Laugh.
I came out to California for one reason, to scuba dive, because it's so good out here. And I was going to go from here, from California where we are now, I was going to go to Europe. I wanted to dive over there and basically live over there. And someone at the time heard that I wanted to leave town, just a girlfriend, and they said, you need to be in the movie business. I said, okay, what am I going to do? And the next day, they called a guy named Frank Sinatra.
Wow.
And they said, call this number, and I was working on a picture as an extra, Von Ryan's Express. And I thought, I can't wait to tell Frank Sinatra who I am. And of course, there were 150 extras on that set, and I couldn't get anywhere near him. And then in that business, they find out, what can you do? I was a pretty good athlete, that kind of stuff. So I started playing things. And one time I was doing a scene for a television series, and it was a baseball thing. And I'm pretty good at baseball. I was good at baseball. So they had me playing shortstop. They had me pitching, all in the same inning sometimes, because nobody could tell.
Yeah.
And then I did a basketball thing, which is one of my worst games. And I could feel a guy in the audience, so to speak, staring at me. And I thought, well, if he's in love, he's going to, bring candy or something. And we had a break, and he came over to me, and he said, what's your name? I said, I'm Lee Stanley. And he said, do you know how to act? And I said, I can lie just as good as the next guy. And that was it. What I didn't know, he was the head of new talent at MGM Studios. And he called me 2 weeks later and he said, you want to be under contract with the studio and everything's for free. And I said, well, that sounds good. So that's how I got into acting.
Great.
I got into acting, and acting is boring for you've been in movies. And what is boring...
I've been in your movies.
Well, absolutely. I wouldn't dare make one without John Disterdick in it. You sit around and wait a lot.
Yeah.
And that's when I fell in love with being on the other side of the camera.
Well, you've done so many things in your life. You're absolutely passionate about yachts, because I remember when we got was it the barefoot contestant? Or the cement one?
Oh,
we
did a
would
cement
not own a
steel.
cement
No,
boat.
it was Minot's Light. The
Minot's
steel.
Light.
It's a
Yeah,
famous
yeah.
yacht on the cover of Proper Yachts.
Yes.
And our first boat was a 28-foot Herreshoff catch, which I knew that was going to be it for
Wood.
the rest of our life. It's wood. And we had that for a good 6 or 7 months.
No,
And then we sold it and got a bigger one, a 36-foot
Joey
Lee catch. And then Minot's Light came on the market, the 58-footer.
Yeah.
And we got that.
And you've also had a passion to help others, because I know your ministry was to incarcerated kids who have not had the opportunity to enter life in any kind of easy, fulfilling way. And you took it on yourself to bridge that gap with those kids. Can you tell us a little about that?
Well, thank you. I was invited down to a juvenile prison. They call it a camp, but it's a prison. And we had driven by it every time we went down to our boat on Malibu Canyon.
Mm-hmm.
I just thought it was a quiet little place for people to grow, And so they called me up and they said, can you fix films? And I said, well, what do you mean? They said, well, our projector ate the film. I said, well, I'll be happy to come down and pick it up and fix it for you. And it was a juvenile prison. I got behind it. The person I was down there to see was a chaplain, and she was busy. So the guy at the door, we'll call it, turned to an inmate and said, give Mr. Stanley a tour. I said, okay. Well, the kid hated me on sight, literally. He was a thug. You know, his head was a hockey rink of scars, tats everywhere, and he didn't want to talk to me. So I got a little uncomfortable. I'd never been in that kind of situation. We're walking around the compound, and I'd say, "Oh, what is that building over there?" And I knew it was a gymnasium. He says, "It's gym." Oh, okay. And he wouldn't engage. And then finally they called my name over the loudspeaker and said, "Come in now, the chaplain's ready to see you." So I turned to the guy and I said, "Well, look, I appreciate your time. Thanks for the tour." And I extended my hand to shake his hand. And he looked at my hand and he gave me this limp fish, if you know what I mean by that.
Yeah, right, exactly.
And I said, when you shake a man's hand, you do two things. You look him in the eye and you embrace their hand. And he quickly did that. And I said, "Thank you, appreciate the tour," and I walked away. And I got about 20 feet from him. He said, "Sir, will you come back and visit?"
Wow.
That got me. And I went back, I did my business helping, took the film that they had eaten, and I went back into my car outside the prison walls, and they were doing an announcement, a directive announcement over the loudspeaker, which I could hear. "Okay, line them up. You know, hands behind your back, move it out." And I started to weep. And I had no idea what was going on. But I knew something had awakened me because I don't like people that break the law. I have no sympathy for them. And yet my heart was being touched. And I'm a Christian. And I said, "Lord, I don't know what you want to do here, but I'm available." And it just exploded and took off.
Yes, it did. That's exciting, and I know you even took you took several, what is the right word, conflicting or combative gangs.
We call them opposing gang members.
Opposing gang members.
Killers. Actually is what they were,
yeah,
yes.
The Crips and the Reds.
The
or whatever,
Bloods.
The Bloods
Yeah.
and the Crips, and then just
Yeah.
kids that didn't like people.
Right, I remember Big
Yeah.
Mike, and you took them out together and made them understand the humanity of each of them, and it
Well
changed
said.
their lives.
Well, thank you. You're being very gracious to me because a group came over from, where was it, Japan? Because they'd heard about I was taking kids out of prison, opposing gang members, and they wanted to know what the secret was.
And by the way, you were opposed at almost every level to do that, to take kids
Up to a
out
point, yeah.
It was like, no, we're not doing that.
Yeah.
So you had to really go the extra mile
Had
to
to
get
fight
that
the
done.
system.
Had to fight the system.
Yeah, fight the system.
And it turned out the system became my dear friends because everything was getting worse every year. To this day, it's getting worse every year. And the program and all this kind of business. But anyway, I think it was a Japanese group came over because they'd seen some television things that we had done with the prisoners, which is the first. You can't identifiably photograph juvenile wards of the court. Got a court order to do it. And they came over and they met me at the prison, one of the prisons. And I said, "We want to know how you do this, you know? What's your program?" And I said, "I don't have a program." He said, "Well, no, you take opposing gang members committed to killing each other on the street and you get them out and they don't kill each other." I said, "I don't have a program." I said, "I tell you what I tell them." I said, "Look, I don't care what you've done. I'm going to treat you as if we just met, and I'd appreciate if you treat me the same way." And we had 48 expeditions, some of them 10 days at sea with nobody, except for sometimes my film company would come out on another boat. We had one incident in 48 expeditions, and some of them were 10-day expeditions out at sea and that kind of thing. And the one...
Changed lives forever.
Well, it changed my life too.
Well, changed, yes.
Yeah, because you realize a heart is a heart. And if you treat someone with respect and listen and let them talk and don't let them think you got a program, because I didn't have a program. And that's one of the things that the folks that came over from Japan or wherever it was couldn't figure out. How can you do it without a program? I said, fine. I said, I don't know. They want to go out on a boat. I got a boat. We got a program. We'll provide food for you. And here's how I play. Period. I said, if my kids are out of order, they get spanked. I said, if you're out of order, you're not going to get spanked, but we will take you back. never had an incident except for one guy that kind of pressed it a little bit.
Yeah, and that's something. Well, and I know, having known the both of you for so long, that you couldn't have done the things you've done without the encouragement and the support of Linda, your wife, all these years. And I know she is, and that's such an important thing, not only in our physical life, that you encourage one another to get out and do something, walk, take a little run, let's go together, let's, you know. But
Can I say something there?
Yes, please.
Linda has been supportive with everything
Yes.
that I've ever wanted to do, and period. Without making an issue about it, you turn around and she's doing things to make it work.
And some of it I know was a struggle. I know there were times when some of it didn't make a lot of sense, but Linda would Linda say, "Ah, it was."
What? You must be mad.
I'm going home now.
But Linda, you in your own right, I know you have you weigh the same as you weighed how many years ago?
45.
45 years ago.
Yeah.
I don't.
I know. Me either. But you know, that's always been a part of your life, and you have maintained that high degree of health, and it's important to you, and it helps your quality of life. Tell us a little bit about your journey.
Oh, golly. Okay, thank you, John. It's very simple. I think that as a Christian, this is a gift, my life, and it has to be honored not only for and with my husband, but for myself.
Yes, very well.
And it's merely a discipline. You know, yes, would I like to eat this, that, and the other thing, or would I like not to walk every day or go to our senior center to work out? Yeah, I'd like to sit around, but I don't.
Mm-hmm.
And it started when I was 29. I had a friend who talked me into running around a football track, a quarter of a mile. I'd never run in my life. I was born with a heart defect. And so that was repaired when I was 17 at Mayo Clinic. And so I guess I wasn't raised to be athletic. My brothers were. But so I didn't know I could run. And oh my goodness, it worked. So that was the beginning. And I just think that women sell themselves short when they can't still fit into their wedding gown.
Yeah.
Why not? Why not?
Yeah.
You can do it. You know, and maybe there's things that make you unhappy or whatever, but you know, you can talk to the Lord about that and get that all straightened out.
Yeah.
You know?
Our theme at Redefining Aging is get involved. Find something.
Yeah.
And get involved. If it's walking, swimming,
Yeah.
hiking.
Yeah.
You're a great example of that.
Yeah.
I've been getting involved for 60-some years.
Good Lord.
You know, when we, there was a time when we lived on 40 acres in a log cabin and we didn't have electricity, and this was 1985-86, right in there when we were starting the WINGS program for the adjudicated youth. And so I couldn't get our generator going because it was kind of down the hill. If he was out filming or out on the yachts with the boys. And so I joined a Westlake Sport House, and I would go there, take my clothes and that I was going to wear for the day. I would work out in the morning. I'd never been in a gym in my life, but that changed my life too, because I got used to going in, working out, taking a shower, dressing for work that day, and it worked.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was kind of how the Lord helped me start working out a little bit.
That's great. Well, you know, and you've been such an encouragement to each other. I've seen it, you know, firsthand, and it's wonderful to see.
Oh, we have to thank the Lord for that.
And
Really?
that's the other thing is at Redefining Aging, we not only want to encourage people for their physical health, but we're really interested in what drives people. What's the most important thing that you have learned through this journey we call life, and what has it meant to you, and how does it fit into the overall, you know, decisions and direction?
I'd like to take that.
Please.
All right.
I'm going to do it after you.
Okay, good. Good. Very simply, when I was 17, my dad was killed in a plane crash, United Airlines plane crash. So that was kind of a shock. as a
Oh,
17-year-old, and I was raised with strong parents, and so I was going off to university. This was, of course, in the fall, in that spring, or this was in the spring, and I was going off to college that fall, and my mother I wanted to stay home with her. She said, no, you go. You have to do your life. And that was brilliant of her. So the point is, when you have an impact like that, as a young woman, you can do things right or wrong. You can get into drugs or screwing around with guys or whatever, or you can honor yourself and move forward and use your brain and be some kind of a leader in whatever form you come up with.
Right.
Nowadays, life is, I believe, too easy for young people. I wasn't raised with entitlement at all. And so it really saddens me that people don't realize that life is so precious.
Yeah.
And I learned that, and it was a terrible lesson, but I learned that life is precious and to be appreciated and to honor it. You know, it's very important.
Hi,
I'm done
John.
preaching.
What?
Tell us what drives the innermost being of Lee Stanley.
Fulfillment.
Okay.
It's like I was an actor, there was no fulfillment in it, basically because you sit around most of the time waiting to be, covered, meaning your close-up, your reverse, your whatever. And I found fulfillment in racing motorcycles because you're a great athlete. I wasn't a great athlete, but it's a great measure of honesty. You get on the line. I made a movie called On the Line, a documentary about myself, the world champion, and a guy that had never competed before. And you really find out what you're capable of, and you know when you're not doing what you really can do, and you can't fool anybody out there. What I shouldn't have had that alcohol. Or I should have.
Do you want a cup of tea or something?
No.
Okay.
I want to talk. I discovered that I love filmmaking. And I discovered I love filmmaking independently because I'd been an actor in film, studio films, and they weren't fun. And I found that I loved doing what I believed I wanted to do to be fulfilled. And to this day, it's very, very fulfilling. I knew something was missing. And I got to tell you the truth. My distributor, who was a wonderful guy, he drove a Ferrari, his wife drove a Rolls Royce, if that tells you anything about him.
Right.
And one day he said to me, you want to have brunch at the house? And I thought, yeah, you keep funding my pictures, I will have brunch anywhere you want to eat. And I said, that'd be great. And he said, look, we go to church on Sunday mornings. Would you like to join us? And I thought, no, I don't have anything to wear. And he said, doesn't matter. It's casual. Jack Hayford's church, for those of you who know Jack Hayford. And
Church on the way.
Church on the way.
Yes.
And so I found no way to get out of it. And he said, we'll go to church and we'll go back to the house. I said, that's wonderful. I didn't know what to wear, so I wore my Levi's, pullover shirt. And I got there, and I couldn't understand why there were so many people outside. There had to be 500-600 people outside. And what I did, the only practical thing was just started checking out, well, what do the women look like, And let's make this a very fulfilling moment here. And my friends that were going to meet me there, Dave and Lynn Adams, they were way in the back of the 500 or 600 people waiting to get in. So then the church let out, and I could not believe the number of people that came out. And the thing that struck me was the gaiety, not stupidness, not religiousness, but just a refreshing joy about they came out. And I thought, well, whatever. And they opened the doors, then they let us in. You may kick me off your program now. But I walked up the stairs, went through the gates, we'll call them the gates, the double doors, and the Lord spoke to me. Terribly frightening, I know, folks. He do speak.
Yeah.
And he said to me, welcome home. We have a lot of things to do together.
And that's and it just it was a powerful moment within you that you couldn't deny it happened.
I heard it.
You heard it.
And I started to weep. And I hadn't cried since my dad died years and years and years when I was in my 20s, had passed away. But they weren't noisy tears. They were just tears coming down. And I felt very uncomfortable. Of course, God bless God, he put me between a gray old lady here and a gray-haired old lady here. And
Which are probably younger than us now, right?
That's enough out of you, John.
Yeah, okay.
And they thought it was the cutest thing in the world, you know? A guy in his early 30s. Thank you.
Sorry.
What do you mean were? And they tried to comfort me, and I said, no, I'm fine, you know, and the tears would not stop. So I left the church that day and found a way not to go back to Dave and Lynn's home for brunch. And I can't remember what my excuse was. Probably I didn't think they had enough Kleenex. And I was writing on the weekend with a friend of mine. And I said, I can't come next weekend. He said, why? I'm going to church. And I'll never forget what he said. What for? And that was it. I went back to church because I had felt something that I had never felt before in all the exciting things that I'd done in my life. I felt alive. And that was the day that I accepted Jesus Christ into my heart. And did I become a fanatic? No. I became, the only word that comes to mind is became grounded. All of a sudden things were starting to make sense. And the first thing I said to the Lord after, thanks a lot, you know, is I said, look, I'm done messing with your lambs. If you have anybody for me, you're going to have to bring her to me. 10 days later, in a bookstore, that'll teach you to go to a bookstore.
I like to read.
Thank you. And I met Linda, and I had her packages because I'm a gentleman. I'm from New England, and she was trying to get her packages back. And I said, would you like to go have a cup of coffee? And she said, no, I
You
can't.
have to mention you were opening the door for me. That's why you took my packages. Otherwise,
course.
I wouldn't give you my packages.
Thank you. And anyway, so I said, would you like to go have a coffee with me? She said, no, thank you. And I said, I'm not done talking with you. So she came over, and we had coffee right around the corner. And it wasn't the hit on, you know, it just, I knew I wasn't done talking with her. And we talked, I talked, she listened for 48 minutes.
You timed it. I love it.
Best 48 minutes I'd ever had with another human being.
That's great.
And I fell in love with Linda during that time. I walked her back to her. I can't let her go. I got back to her car, and I said, I have been looking for you all my life.
Scared the pants off of her, I guess. Probably.
And I kissed her. That ought to shake them all up.
Really?
I kissed her gently, and literally I could almost see her knees shaking. Damn good knees. And she got in her car and drove off. And I thought, I don't know anything except her name is Linda. I don't know where she's from. I don't know anything. And I remember she said she worked at a hospital, Children's Hospital. I called them the next day, and this is 45 years ago. And I said to the switchboard operator, I'm sure is what it was, I said, hi, can I speak to Linda, please? And the lady laughed. She said, you got to be kidding. I said, no, I want to speak to Linda. And she said, well, we had probably 24 Lindas here. You know, it's a big hospital. And I said, let me think. Oh, she works, and it was Children's Hospital. I said, well, she works with dialysis. Does that make sense? And she said, yeah, let me plug you in. And a nurse picked up, God bless her, what was her name, Margaret? She talked like this. And I thought, I hope that's not Linda, because she didn't talk much when I was there. And I said, hi, this is Lee. And she said, I know. I said, I want to make a picnic and take you to lunch. She said, okay. And officious as she is, she said, now I have 1 hour, or can leave here at this time, be back at that time. So I took her to lunch. I had cheese, bread, wine,
That was it.
and that was it. And I opened a bottle of Lancers. If you know that, it's very imported from Tijuana or someplace
No,
like that.
it's from Portugal. It's
Okay.
not a bad wine.
Thank you. I feel better. And poured 2 glasses, plastic glasses, if I remember correctly, and gave her one of the glasses. We clicked them. I said, "Get your life together. We're getting married."
I love it.
And that was 45 years ago and a half.
Yeah.
Isn't that something?
Second best decision I ever made.
Yeah. Okay, tell us the first.
First was the Lord.
All right, that's
I mean, hey, when you
your eternal destiny depends on it.
Well, you know, think about that. What I do remember, if I may share with you, you know, I was an avid diver, and we used to dive in a quarry, which is like the Rose Bowl, except, you know, it's with water. And I took a buddy there to go ice diving, go through the ice, and go diving, you know. And it's like diving in the Rose Bowl, okay? But I was so smart, I said, look, we don't need a tether or line. I know this place. I've been in and out of it in the daytime. We went through the ice, cut a hole in the ice, went all the way down to the end where there was like a little mining operation going when the mine was active. And I said, you know, checking my air, we've got to start going back. So we're going back, and you know, as a diver, you're looking at your gauges to make sure. And I looked up to see where the hole was that we made. And there were holes everywhere where the air that we were expelling trapped under the ice.
Bubbles.
Oh, my
Bubbles.
God. Looks like holes, but it was bubbles.
And,
Oh my gosh.
you know, the first thing you think of is how much air. And I checked my air, and I said, we haven't that much air. My diving partner was not that experienced, and I could tell he was getting a little upset, we'll put it that way. And we got down, I think we got down to me, or he might have gotten down to like 200 psi, which ain't much air left. And here's what I did. Jesus help me. I am serious.
Yeah.
I kept chanting, Jesus help me, through my regulator. And I didn't even know who he was.
Yeah.
And we made it, needless to say, here we are.
Right. Isn't that something? That's an amazing story. And Linda, your walk with the Lord has obviously meant a lot to you through the years. And
True.
The two of you together. How would you tell us about that?
I think I know Lee invited me, like on our first date, to go to church on the way. And as we were walking in, and the song started, the people were throwing their hands up in the air, and I said to Lee, what kind of church is this? Because for me, being raised as a Methodist, which is kind of bland, I said, these people are holy rollers, because I'd seen Elmer Gantry, you know, as a kid. So, but the message that Pastor Jack gave that day on the Shunammite woman when her son dies, and, you know, the husband doesn't care for that son. He's just said, you know, the son died out in the field with his dad, or apparently died, and he said to the servant, the father said, just take him to his mother. And that spoke to me perfectly, and I received the Lord that day. I didn't tell Lee because I hardly knew him, but I raised my hand.
That from 40-some?
Oh, yes.
You remember that?
So
That's amazing.
Yeah, so when Pastor Jack said, do you want to receive the Lord? Normally I'd raise my right hand because I'm right-handed, but I raised my left. So when the service was over, I went to go in the prayer room, and Lee said, oh, don't go in there, because I didn't tell Lee. I didn't know him. And that started our life, my life with the Lord, and our life together. And he's completely supported, the Lord, completely supported me through Lee's passion for his industry, through taking me out of that after 20 years and putting me in another industry, which has been another 20 years. And it's just been a great walk. And we have raised a wonderful family, a blended family, which is hard work. We all know that. And because our base was always the Word of God. End of story. No questions asked. 10 Commandments, Proverbs, Psalms, whatever. There's always an answer there. And that has cemented our life together as husband and wife and raised wonderful, wonderful children. And now grandchildren.
Yeah.
You know, really.
Great grandchildren, but
And,
that's a whole
we have
nother.
a great
That's a whole.
grandchild who's already been to church and he's 6 months old. So.
Can I have one thing about our beginning?
Yeah.
Is that it wasn't easy because you're bringing two families that were raised totally different. It was my son Shane and me, and Linda and her two sons, and we had, how can I say this politely, others working against us.
Well, they just lived and believed differently than we did.
Yeah, they're working against us, and that happens with divorced couples that have children. It's very seldom that whatever the other husband or wife is that's unhappy, too often they use the children. He or she will use the children to divide, to upset, or whatever.
Right.
And we learned so much about trying to raise a family with other influences that had the right to be influential in a young child's life, but not in our family. And it so moved us, John,
Said.
that we did a television special called A Step Apart about step families, and we didn't do it like the book. What we did is we spent time with the kids, and we got to know them comfortably, and where they felt comfortable to speak. And I'll tell you, they said things that I think every marriage counselor should listen to, because there is no rote response for a kid. It's from their heart. And I think that was one of the most important
Right,
projects
and also
we
we
ever did.
met all their parents too.
Oh
You
yeah,
filmed them.
and we filmed the parents too.
Yeah.
And then I did a show where I took kids out of prison, 4 kids out of prison and their parents, fathers, and we went out to sea. And talk about, because the courts had separated them obviously, and talk about a breakthrough when given an opportunity. Every single relationship was healed. Period.
Amazing.
And God's pretty cool when you give him a chance.
Yeah.
And when you don't try to force him, the big him, you know.
Yeah, and you trust him, and you have confidence that he will do it.
Yep, and you stick to his word.
And it's kind of like that, I don't know, I heard it a long time ago, you just die to yourself
Yeah.
in your own program and plans, and you
Yeah.
say, it's up to you, Lord. I'm open. Guide whatever it is.
Well, you're more mature than I, John. No, because when you, for me, I can say, is that when the hood has come off and your eyes are open, you see, you discern, you experience, you feel things that, how come I never felt that simplicity of life before? And that's what happened when it was called Father Son, the one we took the fathers and sons out. I took the fathers and sons out. And they'd all been in counseling, they'd all been through the system, the kids have all been in jail. And that was a 10-day expedition. Every single relationship was healed.
That's 100%.
100%. And the only one of the fathers was a guard. When you take
Security guard.
Well, it's when you take money from your truck or pick up money.
Yeah.
Like Brinks.
And the father was murdered. And the kid's response was, as we can only imagine, but he said, at least, I'll try to get through this one. At least we got to know each other.
Yeah, nice.
Now we've been, I've lived life without Christ.
Yes, I have too.
And if that's what you want to settle for, so be it.
Yeah.
Not me, not our kids.
No. What an encouragement. I mean, you've covered so much ground, relationships, commitments to one another, giving back to those that don't have, and seeing the fruit of that. And of course, how the Lord can work and just work through the garbage that many times life throws at us, and He can turn whatever it is, lemons to lemonade or whatever. He
True.
can make it happen.
We never know what He's doing.
You don't know. And I like to say sometimes that, our little elevator in our brain goes to the, 10th floor or something. God's, 2,000 floors up. We ain't going to ever figure it all out.
That's right.
But and it says in the Bible, without faith it's impossible to please Him. And He's designed this so it requires faith.
Yep. You're right.
And that's what,
Right.
and it's actually a wonderful blessing.
Yeah, well, we don't have the perspective on what He's doing until He's already worked out something that we've been trying to get control of ourselves because we're fearful or we don't understand, we don't know what He's doing. And it's the hindsight and walking with Him over decades where you look back and you go, oh my God, that was, difficult, or that hurt, or I couldn't figure it out. And then you look at it and you go, oh, I get what He was doing.
Yeah.
But you don't at the time.
One of the great things, and I agree with what you're saying tremendously, is that you don't feel you're alone. And I'm not talking about without a spouse. I'm talking about you're facing a challenge. You're facing a circumstance. And you're not alone. And if I can tell one quick story, I did a film called Mountaintops.
I remember that.
With a paraplegic, dead from the waist down, okay? And Rick, I saw him on the cover of a magazine. I called him, and I called the editor of the magazine. I said, I want to do a film on this guy. And the editor called me back, and he said, Rick feels he's not worthy. How do you fight that? What do you mean you're not worthy? Called him a couple of months later, and I said, give me his number. They gave me his number. And I said, I haven't changed my plans. I said, you want to go climb a mountain with me? And he said, have you ever climbed the mountain? I said, no. And he said, neither have I. And he said, let's do it. 13, how big? 13,000? 160?
In the mono recesses.
In the mono recesses. And we went to a certain point on horseback, and then it was tugging and pulling for him. And and Linda was with me, thank God, and a mountaineer and all that. In 11,000 feet, a storm came in. Now, when you're paralyzed from the legs down, from the waist down, body heat, just forget it. And he was going into hypothermia, is that the term that they use?
Yeah.
And we stuck him in sleeping bags, and Linda got in one sleeping bag. And miraculously, we were having a helicopter meet us the next day to film a 360 that he had made it to the top. And we were at 11,000 feet, not 13,000 feet. And I put out a call. And the guy picks up. And I said, we called it Red Slate. We're at 11,000 feet. And we're in trouble. I said, our mountaineer is dying. He's losing his heat and of his body, and he's literally dying. And he said, I'm on my way. He came up, he flew up, and he got, I think, about a quarter of a mile away, and the wind was so strong, it ate up his fuel. He's coming out of, where's he coming out? Bishop. And he said, I got to come back. Now, I'd never met this man before. I got a guy dying, and I think, is he just afraid or what? And he took off, and of course, you want to get close to God, get in a situation like that, know? And I didn't want Rick, the paraplegic, to know that, I said, hey, he'll be back. He's got to fuel up, And he said, I'll be back in 20 minutes. 20 minutes later, I hear whop, 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 whop.
That's a major incident. And you got that on film.
Yeah, and the thing, pardon me for...
what was the television show that aired that? It was a half-hour show. I can't believe it, or what was it?
I don't know.
I can't remember
but
what it was.
the point being is, if you really want to know if God's who He says He is, allow yourself to have some adventures, period. And Rick's life was saved. He was in the hospital for a while, and I called him a week or so later. I said, "How you doing?" He said, "Fine. I'm going back."
Oh my. Oh my.
And I said, "Linda and I found a mountaintop that we could double. We can drive up to it." I'm serious, I did. You have a movie, you got to have an end,
Right.
no matter how faithful you are. And he said, "Lee, I'm going back." And we scheduled it and went back. He made it to the top. Now, Rick has a picture to this day of an eagle in flight on his back window of his van, okay? And the one thing he said when we did this, committed to it, to do the film in the first place, he said, "God, I just hope I can see an eagle." Said, "Okay, Lord, you got that one?" He wants an eagle, okay? This is hard to get through because it was life and death the first time around, then we came back. He makes it to the top. Stand by, folks, we'll get this out.
I know it's hard.
And overhead, maybe 200-300 feet, and we're at 13,000 now. There's an eagle flying around us.
Wow.
And, whew, kick me or something, will you here? And a feather dislodged from the eagle.
Oh no.
And it came down,
Oh my gosh.
and Rick held out his hand.
Oh, unreal.
Okay? So,
Unreal.
this is an ad for Kleenex, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, really.
We've had Lee and Linda, and those that we've had the privilege of doing films with and encountering, and some of the adventures we've had, when you can't call a taxi, when you can't call on a paramedic, and I'm not saying you got to be crazy. We've never done anything crazy, and I mean that. We've done things that we wanted to do.
Yeah.
But I know that do not restrict your life by not having the faith that allows you to go to the next level of what life can really be.
Right. Whether it's the physical side of getting yourself back on losing those pounds that are restricting you from activities, or stepping out in a new direction of faith. You know,
Yep.
But yeah, God is there, and it's exciting.
And it's free.
Yeah.
I mean, really, when you think about it, there's no charge, you know.
Yeah.
I died for you. You want life? I can give you life.
Yes, I love it. That is so encouraging. Anything else, Linda, you would like to add?
No.
Isn't that something?
No, I think it's great that you're doing this.
Yeah.
Wonderful to meet your beautiful new wife.
Yeah.
This is fun.
Yeah.
Having fun as
well,
usual.
We're encouraged that people that sit down and watch this will have a change of heart and a change of life.
Yeah.
And that if they don't know the Lord and have never understood who Jesus Christ is, that they would take that effort,
Yeah.
because He's the way, the truth, and the life.
Yep.
And no one gets to the Father but through Him.
Yep.
There's no
That's right.
plan B.
No.
And, you know, I always felt guilty when I was a non-believer and people would try to drag me to Christ, you know, and I didn't like it. Because, I don't know, I felt like, hey, you know, I don't make you go eat hot chocolate and, you know, just let's keep it, you know, civil. And that's God's job. And He will do it, and He loves to do it through the John Disterdicks of life. He likes to do it through those that have experienced the truth, and there's nothing like truth to set the captives free.
Boy, and you've just given a great many illustrations of that truth, and I just so appreciate your openness and honesty about all this.
Well, our pleasure, it was fun. Really, it was fun.
Yes.
You have any Kleenex, by the way?
No, you're good. You're all good.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Bless you
Great.
guys. What a wonderful testimony. We want to thank you for watching RedefiningAging.us. I'm John Disterdick, your host. And our goal for the series is pretty simple. we just want to enhance the quality of people's lives. So if you know of an event that you think would be good for us to cover, please fill out the form on our website, and not only the event and what it is, where it is, when it is, and if there's a person you know that you think would be a good person for us to do a testimony on in some event, please let us know. And if you want a fuller description of my testimony, you can either go to johndisterdick.com and look under ministry, or you can go here at redefiningaging.us and scroll down, and it's on there as well. We appreciate your viewership. God bless, and hope to see you on more shows.